So I'm Brian Hutchinson. I teach printmaking and art education here at Fort Hays State University. And so part of my high school art day offering is that I'm going to be showing how to make gelatin plates for gelatin printmaking. This is something that I developed when I was still teaching in high school because we didn't have a press. We didn't have all the equipment I needed to make traditional prints. I did some research on gelatin prints, which is basically a relief process. And it really kind of grew from there. Now I incorporate that into a non-traditional printmaking course in the summer. I've made a lot of monotypes from it, and it's had a lot of success. So the way it works, and I guess we'll kind of go with the basic recipe. The first time I tried this, I tried it a lot of different ways, and so the way I'm showing is the way that I've figured out seems to work best. You'll find a lot of different recipes online. So try it my way. I think you'll find that it's going to work out pretty well for you. So the basic recipe is 8 packets of unflavored gelatin. I get the generic stuff. I've done it with like the name brand stuff before. It works all the same really. It seems like sometimes the generic stuff dissolves better. I don't know why. And get unflavored. That way you don't have like weird colors and stuff on your plate. You'll need a cup of cold water and you'll need a cup of boiling water. So if you follow the recipe that's on the packages, it calls for 4 packets of unflavored gelatin with this much water. So basically you're adding double the amount of unflavored gelatin because you need like a fairly dense plate that still stays moist. These are not permanent plates. Permanent plates you have to use glycerin in, and glycerin is very expensive. To add to that, all you have to do to keep this for some time after you get it set up, you want to cover it with saran wrap or aluminum foil and just stick it in your fridge. I've had these things last for several weeks at a time. And I'll talk more later about like when I'm doing my demonstration on how to create prints from this, some of the different ways that you can care for your plate. So I'm doing a double batch here. I got these really sweet large lunch trays from a school that I used to work at. You know, artists really never throw anything away. It's kind of one of those things that helps us to work cheaply and efficiently. So what I do is I pour my cold water in first. And so what I've done is I put 2 cups of cold water in here. And so I've got that measured out. This little area that's trying not to have a hydrogen bond is, there we go. I need that water to be everywhere. This gelatin, it doesn't like to dissolve in water very well, so you have to kind of treat it carefully. So I have 16 packets of this unflavored stuff. I've done a lot of workshops with this in the past too. Like I've done youth workshops, I've done collegiate workshops with this, and I do it a lot when I'm working at home. It's one thing leads to another. I end up with like 30 prints at the end. They come out really pretty beautifully. I'm gonna start with 4 packets at a time. And what I like to do is I like to sift it across the surface so that, and this is a really good thing to see here, like this is a really shallow spot in the water, and so you can see that gelatin doesn't really want to like absorb into the water very well. So it may produce clumps later, hopefully not. So the idea is to sift it very evenly over the surface so that it can just kind of start absorbing the water. Gelatin's an animal product. It's got no hydrogen, or rather H2O in it. So once it gets into a pool of water like this, it wants to really soak it up. You don't want to layer it up on here so much that you have a whole bunch of dry stuff on the top. So I kind of go to different areas, and as that's dry, or as that's absorbing into the water, then I find a new area to go to. I used to do it where I pre-mix it ahead of time, and it seemed like I spent a lot of time with a mixing bowl. So now I just put it straight into the plate that I want to make my prints off of. The 8 packet recipe is perfect for like an old 11 by 17 baking sheet. So basically, whenever my wife says she wants to throw out some of our old kitchen supplies, I'm like, no way, I need to make prints off of that. So the 8 packets works perfect for that. You want something like kind of shallow so that you can make larger plates with it. I like stuff like this where you have a short lip so that you can print all the way off the edge. And you just hand print with this stuff. That's the beauty of gelatin plates. I will say, as I'm doing this, it's got a pretty nasty odor. Sure, it's an animal product. That's one of the first things my students always say when they get one of these. They're like, oh, it's gross. I'm like, yeah, it's still engaging. It's fun. Watch, you'll see. So I do have to say, like, if you have animals at home, especially dogs, you want to keep them away from them. Some of my dogs have gotten a hold of a few of my gelatin plates. They love that flavor. Because it tastes like a rawhide bone or something. I don't know. Like, my dogs be eating my art supplies. I'm not happy about that. So, like, I try to keep these things, like, well out of their reach. I'm actually not going to put this in the refrigerator right away. First thing you got to do is get your gelatin, like, consistently spread across the water so that it absorbs. And it's going to have a weird texture when it does that. I always kind of say it's like a brain-like texture. There will be some areas that I can show you here shortly as that's happening. After that, I add the boiling water in, get it all mixed up slowly. Slow is the key, for sure. And then I let it set up for about an hour at room temperature. At that point, I cover it and I put it into like some kind of a refrigerator or something. I actually measured this against our really big refrigerator we have here at the art and design department. It's just barely gonna fit inside there, which is always a good surprise for other faculty members that want to put their lunch in there, and they're like, what the John is that thing? Like, just don't eat it, it's not good for you. I've also done this before for workshops where I make a really massive plate like this and then I cut it into squares just like you would for, like, you know, Jell-O, if you're gonna serve it as a food thing. And then I put them on like styrofoam plates or whatever. I could do that for several students, and then we can make like a lot of prints. I'm having to really load it up out here just because this area is shallow due to the a natural curve in this lunch tray. So I'm kind of running out of space here. It looks like that area is not too saturated. Sometimes I find that I have to add just a little bit more water to really encourage this to absorb. I think I've met my 16 at this point. So a lot of times I will use a whisk to finish this up, but a fork works just as well, or a spatula. You also want either some newspaper, like torn into like half-size sheets like this, or these are just old like copies that people didn't want. We use this to get the foam off of the surface of this. So now I need boiling water for this. So I need 2 cups. And so I've got a little tea kettle over here. It sounds like it's going slow. Go ahead and stop that. So